I used to believe betrayal was something that happened to other people, something you read about in stories, something distant, dramatic, unreal. I was wrong. Betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes, it comes from the two people you trust the most. She was my fiancée, the woman I planned my entire future around, the woman who knew my fears, my weaknesses, and my dreams better than anyone else in the world. And he was my brother, not just by blood, but by years of shared memories, shared rooms, shared struggles, shared promises that no matter what happened, we would always stand by each other. Or at least, that's what I believed. I remember the nights she and I spent planning our wedding, choosing colors, talking about where we'd live, laughing about the kind of parents we wanted to be someday. She used to hold my hand and say, "No matter what happens, I'm choosing you." I believed her. I trusted her with my future. I trusted my brother with my back. That was my first mistake. The signs were there, but love is a way of making you blind. She started canceling plans. My brother started showing up more often, too often. Conversations stopped when I entered the room. They said I was overthinking. They said I was tired. They said family would never betray family. So I ignored the warning in my gut. Until the day everything collapsed. I wasn't told directly. There was no honesty, no explanation, no apology. I found out the same way strangers find out. Through a photo of my fiancée in a wedding dress, smiling, radiant, and standing beside her was my brother. At first, I thought it was a joke, a misunderstanding, some cruel prank. My hands were shaking as I stared at the screen, hoping the image would change, hoping I had misunderstood something. But reality doesn't bend for hope. It hit me slowly, then all at once. Like drowning. My chest tightened. My breath disappeared. My heart felt like it was being crushed from the inside. They didn't just leave me. They replaced me. I called her. No answer. I called my brother. Straight to voicemail. I called my parents. Silence. That silence hurt more than the betrayal itself. Because it told me something terrifying. They all knew. They all chose sides. And they didn't choose me. I wasn't invited to the wedding. I wasn't given an explanation. I wasn't even given the dignity of closure. I was erased. Overnight, I became the outsider in my own family. The embarrassment no one wanted to talk about. The reminder of something uncomfortable. People whispered my name like it was a warning. Like I was the problem. She moved on. You should accept it. It's better this way. Better for who? Every memory turned into a weapon. Every song, every place, every promise. At night, I replayed every moment, searching for where I went wrong, where I wasn't enough, where I failed. Was I too trusting, too kind, too focused on building a future instead of protecting my present? The worst part wasn't losing her. It was losing my identity. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was humiliated. Publicly, permanently. My brother walked proudly into a life that was supposed to be mine. My fiancée wore the ring I had chosen, lived the future I had planned, and I was left with nothing but unanswered questions. They thought I would break. They expected anger, tears, a public collapse. But something strange happened instead. The pain didn't destroy me. It sharpened me. For the first time in my life, I saw people clearly, not as I wanted them to be, but as they truly were. I realized something important. They didn't betray me because I was weak. They betrayed me because they thought I would stay weak. They believed I would fade quietly into the background, disappear, become a forgotten chapter. Standing alone in that silence, I made a decision. I would not beg. I would not chase. I would not explain myself to people who never cared enough to explain their betrayal. I would walk away, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. And I would rebuild my life so completely that one day, they would look at me and realize something terrifying. They didn't destroy me. They created the man they would one day fear. And that was only the beginning. After the wedding, the world didn't stop for my pain. People still laughed. Cars still passed by. Life continued as if nothing had happened. But inside me, everything was different. I had no place in my own family anymore. No one called to ask how I was holding up. No one asked if I was okay. They pretended the betrayal never happened, like erasing me would erase their guilt. I moved out quietly. No dramatic goodbye. No angry confrontations. Just a suitcase, a few clothes, and a heart that felt heavier than anything I'd ever carried. I stayed in a small, empty room that barely felt like a home. The walls were silent. The nights were long. Sleep became a stranger. Every time I closed my eyes, memories attacked me. Her laughter, my brother's voice, the life that was stolen from me. Some nights, the pain was so heavy I wondered if disappearing would hurt less than existing. But then I remembered something. They were celebrating. They were living happily, convinced they had won. And that thought refused to let me quit. I took a job no one wanted. Long hours, low pay, no respect. People talked down to me. Managers ignored me. Customers treated me like I was invisible. And maybe I was. But invisibility can be powerful. While they were posting photos of vacations and smiling faces, I was learning discipline, learning patience, learning how to survive without comfort. Every insult hardened me. Every long shift trained my mind to endure pressure. I stopped asking, why did this happen to me? And started asking, what can I build from this? I studied late at night. Business, finance, human behavior. I learned that emotions make people weak, and information makes them powerful. I cut distractions. No parties. No social life. No explanations. People assumed I had failed in life, that I was broken beyond repair. I let them believe it. There is freedom in being underestimated. Meanwhile, my brother lived the life that was supposed to be mine. Family gatherings. Respect. Support. They praised him. They defended his choices. They justified the betrayal by calling it fate. And I was the unfortunate story they avoided mentioning. But something shifted inside me. The anger faded. The sadness settled. In its place came focus. Cold, clear, unshakable. I learned how systems work, how money moves, how influence is built quietly, not loudly. I saved every dollar, invested small, failed often. I lost money, made mistakes, started over more times than I can count. But every failure taught me something valuable. Pain is expensive, but education costs more. While they were sleeping comfortably, I was awake. While they felt secure, I was preparing. They thought I was finished. They were wrong. One night, I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. The softness was gone. The desperation had disappeared. In its place stood someone calmer, stronger, someone who no longer needed approval from family or love from someone who betrayed him. I stopped hating them, because hate gives people power over you. Instead, I became indifferent, and indifference is dangerous. Slowly, things began to change. Opportunities appeared. The right conversations happened. The right people noticed my discipline. I wasn't loud. I wasn't flashy, but I was consistent. And consistency beats talent when talent feels entitled. Years passed. My brother and his wife never once checked on me, never asked where I had gone, never cared what I was building. They assumed I was still struggling, still small, still broken. They had no idea I was becoming someone they wouldn't recognize. I learned one truth that changed everything. Power doesn't come from revenge. It comes from independence, for no longer needing anything from the people who hurt you, from standing so firmly on your own feet that no one can push you down again. One day, I received an invitation, not from family, not from friends, from people who mattered. And as I read it, a calm smile appeared on my face. Because I knew something they didn't. The chapter where they thought my story ended was actually the chapter where it truly began. And soon, they would see the man they never believed I could become. Success doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly, almost unnoticed, especially by those who are no longer watching. For years, I lived in the shadows of other people's expectations. Low expectations, no expectations, and I used that to my advantage. I stopped telling people what I was working on, stopped explaining my goals, stopped defending my past. Silence became my strategy. While the world saw nothing special, I was building foundations that couldn't be shaken. I started small, a single opportunity that didn't look impressive on the outside. No luxury, no spotlight, but it taught me something powerful. how to recognize value where others saw nothing. I learned how to negotiate, how to read people before they spoke, how to remain calm when others panicked. Every skill I gained was paid for with nights of exhaustion and days of self-doubt. But I kept going. Slowly, that one opportunity turned into another. Then another. I reinvested everything. No celebration, no reward, just growth. The world is full of people who want success without sacrifice. I had already paid my price in pain, so sacrifice felt familiar. I began meeting people who spoke differently, thought differently, people who didn't care about my past, only my results. They didn't ask about my family. They asked about my vision. They didn't judge me by where I came from. They judged me by how I moved. And for the first time in years, I felt respected, not out of sympathy, but competence. I dressed simply, spoke carefully, listened more than I talked. That alone made people underestimate me. And again, I let them. Behind the scenes, my influence grew. I built partnerships that looked ordinary but connected powerful networks. I solved problems others avoided. I became reliable in moments where failure was expensive. Reliability creates trust, and trust opens doors no money ever could. The day I realized everything had changed was surprisingly quiet. No applause, no dramatic moment, just a notification on my phone confirming a deal that shifted my entire life. I sat there staring at the screen, not smiling, not celebrating, just breathing, because I knew this wasn't luck. This was earned. By then, my name carried weight in places my family had never heard of. Rooms where decisions were made quietly, where power moved without noise. Meanwhile, my brother was still living the life that looked impressive on the surface. Big house, big smile, big ego, but surface-level success has cracks. And I could see them. He depended on approval, on borrowed influence, on family protection. I depended on no one. That difference changes everything. I learned how real power works. It doesn't demand attention. It attracts it. It doesn't threaten. It waits. People started seeking my advice, my investment, my approval, not because I asked, but because my results spoke for me. I never posted about my success, never hinted at it. The less people knew, the more control I had. I became someone who could walk into a room unnoticed and leave having changed everything. Years earlier, I would have wanted my family to see me now, to regret what they did. But that desire faded. Validation from betrayers has no value. Then fate did something interesting. Our worlds began to overlap. A mutual connection mentioned my name casually, not dramatically, just enough to plant confusion. My brother heard it first. He laughed it off, said it couldn't be me. But curiosity is dangerous. Soon, they started asking questions. Quiet ones. And the answers didn't make sense. The man they remembered was gone. In his place stood someone unfamiliar, unreachable, unbothered. I didn't rush the moment. Timing is everything. Because the best reactions happen when people realize too late that they misjudged you. I had no interest in revenge. Revenge requires emotional investment. I had moved beyond that. What I wanted was freedom, control over my own life. And I had it. The man they once pitied no longer existed. The man they dismissed had outgrown their imagination. Soon, circumstances would force us into the same room. Not as family, not as equals, but as something far more uncomfortable for them. Power had shifted, and they had no idea just how completely. The rise they never saw coming was already complete. The moment finally came, not with thunder, not with drama, but with inevitability. I walked into the room without announcement. No one looked up at first. I was dressed simply. No luxury. No display. Power doesn't need decoration. The room was full of voices, confident laughter, familiar arrogance. My brother stood near the center, surrounded by people who admired him. My former fiancée stood beside him, smiling the way she always had, polished, practiced, proud. They didn't notice me yet, and that was perfect. I took a seat quietly, listened, observed. Every word they spoke revealed how little they understood the world they believed they controlled. Then someone said my name, casually, almost carelessly. The conversation slowed. My brother turned first. His smile hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Enough. His eyes narrowed, searching my face, trying to match memory with reality. It didn't fit. I saw confusion flicker, then doubt, then something close to fear. My former fiancée followed his gaze. The color drained from her face. She didn't expect me to look calm, composed, unmoved. She expected anger, resentment, a man still trapped in the past. Instead, she saw someone completely detached from it. The room shifted. People who didn't know me started paying attention, not because of my presence, but because of their reaction to it. Energy never lies. My brother stood up, trying to regain control of the moment. He said my name again, louder this time. I nodded once. No smile. No hostility. Acknowledgement, not submission. Someone asked who I was. Before I could speak, another voice answered. A respected voice. One that carried weight in that room. They didn't introduce me as someone's brother or someone's ex. They introduced me by my work, my influence, my position. That's when everything changed. The pride on my brother's face collapsed, replaced by disbelief. My former fiancée couldn't look away. She was seeing the cost of her decision in real time. People began approaching me, not them, asking questions, offering hands, offering respect. I didn't chase attention. It came to me. The family that once dismissed me now watched in silence. Their posture changed. Their voices softened. They realized too late that they were no longer in control of the situation. My brother tried to join the conversation, but he wasn't the center anymore. He asked how I had been. A pointless question. I answered politely, briefly. Nothing invites insecurity like calm indifference. Later, he pulled me aside. His voice was lower now. Careful. He spoke like someone negotiating, not commanding. He hinted at family, at history. I listened. Then I said something that ended the conversation without raising my voice. I moved on a long time ago. Nothing hurts more than realizing you no longer matter. My former fiancée approached next. Alone. No confidence. No rehearsed smile. She asked how I did it, as if success was something accidental. I looked at her, not with anger, not with regret, but with neutrality. And I understood something important in that moment. Closure doesn't come from explanations. It comes from distance. I wished her well, and walked away. That silence screamed louder than any accusation ever could. By the end of the evening, the room had fully shifted. They weren't being ignored. They were being bypassed. Decisions were made without them. Conversations moved past them. They stood watching something they once had, control, slip through their fingers. The family that once looked down on me now watched their own standing weaken. Not because I attacked them, but because I no longer needed them. Before I left, my brother stood in my path. His voice cracked. He asked if we were still family. I looked at him calmly and said the truth. Family doesn't do what you did. Then I walked past him. No threats. No revenge. Just reality. That night, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. The power they once held over me, emotional, psychological, social, was gone. They bowed not because I demanded it, but because they finally understood who held real power. And for the first time since the betrayal, I wasn't looking back. True power doesn't arrive with noise. It settles in quietly, like certainty. After that night, nothing needed to be said anymore. No explanations. No confrontations. The balance had already shifted. People think victory looks like revenge, like public humiliation, raised voices, or someone finally begging for forgiveness. But that's not victory. That's desperation wearing confidence. My real victory came in the days that followed, when I realized something important. I no longer replayed the past in my mind. I no longer wondered what I could have done differently. I no longer needed answers from people who had already shown me who they were. The betrayal that once defined my pain had lost its power over me, and that terrified them more than anger ever could. Word spread quickly, not because I wanted it to, but because influence moves faster than truth. People began to associate my name with decisions, not drama, with stability, not history. My brother felt it first. Doors that once opened easily for him started closing. Calls stopped getting returned. Meetings were postponed, then forgotten. He didn't lose everything overnight. That's not how real consequences work. They arrive slowly, quietly, and without warning. My former fiancée felt it differently. Respect around her became conditional. People listened, but no longer trusted. Smiles remained, but admiration faded. She had chosen comfort over character, and comfort doesn't age well. Their family tried to reconnect. Carefully, politely, as if nothing had happened. Invitations arrived. Messages softened. Voices carried regret they never directly expressed. I didn't reject them. I simply didn't rearrange my life for them either. Boundaries are the final form of self-respect. I learned that forgiveness doesn't require access, and peace doesn't require reconciliation. They bowed, not physically, but emotionally. Every interaction carried caution now. Every word was chosen carefully. They feared making a mistake. And that fear told me everything. Because once upon a time, I was the one afraid of losing them. Now, they were afraid of losing relevance to me. I didn't flaunt my success. Didn't remind them of what they did. I let contrast do the work. I spoke less, moved slower, listened more, and people leaned in. The man they once dismissed had become a reference point, a decision maker, a name that opened rooms. I realized something profound during this time. Power isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself so completely that no one else can control you again. I had done that. The anger that once fueled me was gone. The pain had been transformed into clarity. I no longer needed to prove anything. Not to them. Not to myself. One evening, I stood alone, looking out over a city that once felt unreachable. The lights stretched endlessly, each one a reminder of how far I'd come. And for the first time, I allowed myself to feel proud. Not because I won, but because I survived without becoming bitter. Because I rose without stepping on others. Because I turned betrayal into discipline and pain into purpose. They thought taking my fiancée would end me. Instead, it freed me. They thought humiliating me would make me small. Instead, it made me untouchable. The real power they feared wasn't my success. It was my independence. My calm, my refusal to be defined by what they did to me. In the end, I didn't take anything from them. I took something far more valuable from the experience. Myself. And that is a power no one can ever take away.